Hey kids, you're listening to the internet's wettest podcast about video games, consoles, and pancakes. The SML Podcast.
Prepare for the SML Podcast.
What's up, everybody? This is the SML Podcast. I am your host, Joe. Joining this episode, we've got Pernell and Andy Sperry is here. How are you two doing?
I need a nap from my vacation.
You need a nap from the vacation?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really my vacation. Someone was visiting me, but I treated it like a vacation because I took off from work to, accommodate the guests. And we just played a lot of board games and hung out and went to like breweries and stuff. Very light, like an easy guest compared to most guests, because he doesn't need he doesn't need to be coddled to or taken to a bunch of scenic sites. He's like, I just want to hang out and play board games because I get to do a lot of board gaming where I live. I'm like, what a coincidence. I also like to play board games and don't get to play them as much where I live. So we basically went through a lot of games over the week. We played like 10 different games while he was here. Good Lord. Went to like 3 different breweries. Just kind of hung out and had a good time, but I'm tired from that. And now I'm also re-cleaning the house because, you got to, wash all the dishes and stuff like that after a guest leaves.
How about you, Andy? How are you feeling?
That's a lot of work. I want to know what kind of board games you play, dude. I love board games. I'm doing pretty good. I'm just another day, just waiting for a kid to bust in here so I can beat him up or something.
Nice.
That's pretty much it.
Well, I mean, I would say if you were genuinely curious about some of them, we played Dice Forge, Fantastic Factories, Verona, Arcana Rising, Import, Export. Let me see, what else? We played a lot of games.
Those all sound great.
Res Arcana. Yeah, there's a lot. What are some of your favorite ones? What do you tend to play?
I got a lot of big games that nobody will play with me just because they're one of those like hour setup, and then.
Well, now I want to know. See, now I want to know. What are those?
I really like Arcadia Quest. I think that one's great.
Cool.
Yeah, that one's really fun. I also have a couple random ones that I have like Unearth, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good game.
King of Tokyo.
Why would they play that? That's a light game.
That one's those are lighter games. Those ones people will play with me, but like I have one that I can't remember the name of it, and I don't know where it is. I've got all the games next to me, but I'm not seeing it right now. But it's like a flicker game. So you like set up all these little characters, and then you have different weapons for the characters, and the weapons respond with like you like put a little pip on the table and like flick it at these other enemies.
I thought I'd probably played something like this. It's just eluding me right now.
It's like zombie based, but it's like Dead of Winter. I don't remember what it's called, but it's also like like Betrayal too. That's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so out of this conversation because I don't have anyone to play board games with.
I've got a bunch of kids, so like they'll play some of the lighter ones with me, like King of Tokyo or like Sushi Go, but I'm lost when it comes to anybody to play like more expansive games with.
Candyland.
Trust me,
Payday.
I get you. Ain't nothing expensive about Candyland.
That's my
People
shit.
try to make it complicated. Like if you're wondering, like, here's some of the most complicated games that guy on the stream has played. You can look up stuff like Weather Machine and Bot Factory and Kanban. Oh, and Rococo. Like, I think those are probably the heaviest games I've played in recent years.
You ever played Deep Sea Adventure? There we go. Deep Sea Adventure.
Yes, that's an oink game. Yeah, that game is pretty good. That's the one where you have to go across the pips and get the treasure, but don't get left behind when the sub takes off.
Exactly.
And also, you can't run out of oxygen.
Yeah, that one's really good.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You should get that game.
Who am I going to play with?
Dude, I don't know. You could play by yourself, I guess. Be all the characters.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of board games that have solo modes now. That's what my one friend that visited me, he does a lot of those himself. But when he can get his friends together, he likes to play regular, full-on games too. But solo modes exist. though. I mean, there's also things like Board Game Arena, but me, like, I think you're in the same boat I'm in, where it's like, if you're going to go on Board Game Arena, you must just play a video game. So,
Yeah. 100%.
Pernell can attest that I legit don't have the room to play board games and like in my office. I would have to go out in the living room, and like no one hangs out in the living room. Now my cat's gonna try climbing on my desk.
You can get,
What's up,
get your cats
Peaches?
to play with
I can
you, dude.
see you. I can see you, Peaches.
he's like, meow, 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 mew, meow. But yeah,
Peaches is one
I've
who's
reached the point-
never on camera.
what I've come to like also about this whole hobby is that like I talked to a lot of people. Like I went to a board game brewery thing last night. I met a guy there who does board games and video games. Like he talks about Steam Deck and all. He does like a Steam Deck night at his bar and even. And he was like, yeah, I used to be big on video games, and then one day I just realized I'd rather play board games. Like me too. It's like you end up doing this thing where you're like, if I'm doing back in the day, I'd had all these like multiplayer video games and all that. Now I'm just like, if I can do multiplayer and I had to choose, it's board games all day. Video games I'd rather do by myself. If I want to do, if it's a choice between what to play by myself, board game or video, it's video games. But board games is where the multiplayer is at. And I don't know what it is, but I like the fact that that's how things have played out in regards to this hobby.
You're probably
Weird.
like really good at video games, and that way, you know, like you get people in there that aren't as good, and you're just like, man, why did you make that mistake? Like you suck at this game. That's usually like what I run into, where I'm like, oh man, like me and the girlfriend play Vampire Survivors, and I'm just like, why did you pick that weapon? Like that weapon sucks. Like why would you do that? You know, like I should just play this level again, like later, you know, when you're not around.
But then the problem is when you do that, that's when the girl's like, I'm not even going to play games anymore because I feel like I'm getting berated. And now you're like, shit, if only I just kind of reined it in a little bit.
Player games too, so you know we're good there, but yeah.
But yeah, well,
I find myself doing that when I watch people streaming. Like if I'm watching someone stream a game and they don't know what they're doing, I can't watch the stream.
Oh,
because I get so like I'm just sitting there like, no, you have to do that. Oh my God, why aren't you turn around, go up the hill? No, what are you doing? Why are you going towards the well? And you're just wondering what the hell they're doing and why. And you just want to grab the controller and do it for them. Be like, don't ever play this again.
But I will say, when it's not multiplayer, right? Like when I'm not dependent on their success, I actually like watching people play games like that. Like if I play a game that I'm well familiar with, definitely if it's a horror game, and then another person wants to play the horror game behind me, I love watching them do things on their own while I know what's going to happen, because there's something to be said. It's like watching a real horror movie in that sense, where it's like, why the hell would they open that door? That just seems like isn't it an obvious area? You can tell there's a demon waiting behind it. But they're like, I wonder what's behind this door, and you watch them get freaked out, and you're like, I wouldn't have done that.
I mean more in the sense of they don't know what they're doing and they're going wrong way or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or I don't know.
Well, that's an interesting. That was an interesting umbrella too, because it could go one of two ways. Either A, maybe they're not good at that particular game, but there's also the added element too, like depending on how many games they've played, a lot of the stuff that we do now, like that we take for granted because we honed that over years of like developing an intuition on what to do in certain situations. But before playing a number of games that had that mechanic, you probably made the mistakes of like, I can do that by pressing that button. That's unexpected. But now, just because of games like Castlevania 1, you smack every freaking wall you see in a game that's a 2D platformer because you expect a chicken to be behind it, whether it's going to be there or not, just because fair. You've been built to believe chicken is behind walls. Stuff like that. So if a person I know isn't really much for playing games, I kind of let them slide when they do stuff that I feel would be particularly normal or common because they're just not familiar. This might be the first game they got to play. In fact, there's something to be said about knowing a person that had that predicament and then one day realizing that because of you, now they are the person like this. They're like, look how much better I've gotten at these games because of you. Like, yeah, I did that. Once upon a time, you didn't do much of anything with games, and now you're a beast. You're welcome. It's something nice about that whole vibe there. But I digress.
Feel that way. Like
Are
if
you
I'm
playing something, Pernell, because I think I keep hearing music on your end.
No, nothing at all.
Pernell, I was gonna say, I feel like that if I'm streaming a game, like if there's somebody in there that knows the game super well, or like I've been streaming Dark Souls a lot.
Oh yeah, that would be a good one for that.
So like, people come in and they're like, yeah, no, you should go over here and like fight this guy, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that guy was there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. They impart their knowledge. Yeah, they impart their knowledge on you, and in turn, it makes your experience better because, on one hand, some people like to say, Dark Souls is all about dying and learning and relearning. But some of that dying and relearning, they don't have to do it. Someone can tell you, don't waste your time on that clear trap because I already went through that trap. Just avoid it and then go fight this guy and go about your business. Because
that's the best part.
Yeah, because I can tell you, like, when I got around, the first Dark Souls, I'm assuming, just in case, we'll see. I don't know if you got this. Did you get past the Capra Demon yet?
I am, I'm like right at the end now. I've been playing it for the last month or so. I got like almost 60 hours into it. So
sweet.
I think I'm like at the last boss on that guy. So
like, if you remember, I'm assuming that when you fought the Capra Demon, was he a wall for you of sorts?
Oh, yeah.
Because that was like back in the day. He was a traditional wall for a lot of Dark Souls players back in the day.
He's in that like tiny room with the 2 dogs or 3 dogs, and just eating you up the whole time. As soon as you walk through that mist.
That's the bastard. So
yeah,
like
way later.
Like what happened with me the first time I played, this was back before there was like people talking about it enough. But like at the beginning, you get to pick the different items, and I picked that key because the key just seemed like an interesting thing to take. Like, what will this mean? What does this do? I'm just going to take it. And completely unexpectedly, people were talking about this Capra Demon. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm looking forward to this thing because people keep bringing them up. I've never fought the Capra Demon. Where is it? And honestly, what happens is if you get that key as your starting item, you technically never have to fight that guy. I went back and looked for him once I realized, like, oh, this whole area I've never been to. That's the Capra Demon, and then steamrolled his ass. So it became this thing where, like, when new people come to play the game, without telling them why, just say, take the key. Take the key. There's nothing else that's as good as the key for that specific reason, as far as I'm concerned. So
I wish I would have taken the key.
Yeah, because that guy's a douche. It just feels better when you come back later and you just, like, stomp him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I was like level 40 or something by the time I got back to him, and just chewed him up.
Yes.
It felt so good. After dying like 100 times to him, I was like, nope.
Not tonight, buddy. You got to go.
What other stuff have you been playing, Andy? What other games?
All kinds of games. I tried out that new F-Zero 99. Have you seen that?
How is that?
Actually, like jumping into it at first, I was a little weird about it. I love the F-Zero series, but it seems like, Nintendo's kind of put them to the wayside. So, jumping back to it, it almost feels like they're trying to see the interest in the game series again, But the game itself is like as chaotic as it is fun, I would say. I mean, it's all the classic courses from the SNES like series. And you're driving around, in the class. I mean, it looks like you're playing Super Nintendo again. So, just with 98 other players on the track too. And they added a couple new things to it too, like kind of a jump skip, like little track. If you collect enough gold orbs, which is really cool. And it makes it really fun. With so many people on there, it's very chaotic, very hectic. Your cars will explode, those kind of things, like real fast. But it's great. I really enjoy it, and I'm gonna play it more too. And then I also been playing Lies of P. I just started that.
Ooh.
And that one
is awesome. It good? As a person playing Dark Souls right now, especially. Exactly.
Yeah. I've been. I didn't know about it actually until a couple weeks ago, and I don't know how it totally like passed my radar. But I was so into the idea of like starting Lords of the Fallen next month because that comes out on the 13th. And I was trying to really go from like one Souls-like to another Souls-like. And I saw that one. And so the other day I tried it out, and it's super fun. Like it feels like Dark Souls. It's very fluid. The art style is awesome. The attacks feel really good, like fighting enemies feels great, And then fighting bosses is just insane. The bosses are huge. I got to the first one and just got, kicked in the butt like multiple times, before I finally beat it. I think you jumped into that stream. I don't know if you caught any of it too, but it was, it's really good. I'm really looking forward to playing more of it too. I like it a lot. And the whole style Looks really cool. It reminds me a lot of Bloodborne, which a lot of people are very into that game, and hoping for a PC release or remaster or something like that. Some kind of remaster, but we'll see if that ever happens. But it definitely has that style, probably that feel. I haven't played too much Bloodborne. And it's kind of an interesting story, taking the world of like Pinocchio, and turning it upside down a little bit. So it's fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
The game I've been playing all weekend has been game shuffling because shit keeps releasing and they're huge. Games are just getting huger and bigger, and I don't have room for them. So I'm shuffling things between hard drives. Trying to make room. Like Forza Motorsport, the new one that comes out next month, the preload just went live on Xbox today. 132 gig.
Holy cow.
Starfield is 101. Mortal Kombat 1 is 141 gig. I don't have the space for this shit.
The space? What about the freaking time? You just named a bunch of games that are a stupid amount of time. Like,
yeah, Starfield's going to be like 1,000 hours.
Well, that's on Game Pass, so
even still doesn't change a thing. Like, people will say, like, for example, like, it's like, you gotta play Baldur's Gate, you gotta play Starfield, you gotta play what I was like, look here, man. They might be the best games this year. I'm ignoring all of them. I maybe somewhere down the line when they're cheap and I feel like I had a freaking window and a sliver of time for them, but they're just too big. Like, they're too expansive. I don't think the time exists to even take what I should get out of them. So I don't want to start them and be disappointed that I can't play the 100 and whatever hours Baldur's Gate's going to demand for maximum enjoyment. And Starfield, I hear, is even more. So it's a trip. I don't know how people do it.
My brother put it best. He was saying that, Starfield is one of those games that you play when you're retired. And you're just sitting in a home and just waiting for the end, and you're like, all right, we're gonna make this our life now.
You spent 70 hours playing it.
Exactly.
There it is. Because they honestly, that's the thing. I had that chat yesterday earlier today too. The idea of like the old thought of like I'm just going to amass a pile of games, and then when I retire, it's time to go. But that's why I exercise this shit too. It's like it would suck if I got to retirement and be like, you know what? I can't play that game because now I have freaking crazy hand cramps or my eyes suck. I'm trying to do whatever I can just to give myself a little more of an edge to not be down and out from when I'm like 60 years old. Like, you can't play video games anymore, buddy. So it's a doozy. It's tough, but who knows? Maybe we have what it takes to buck the trend. We can pull this off.
Maybe. But instead, we got reviews to talk about. Should we dive into these? We got a bunch to discuss tonight.
We can get down to business.
Do it.
All right. First game to talk about tonight is The Legend of Nayuta Boundless Trails. Developed by Nihon Falcom, published by NIS America, released September 19th on Steam for $39.99. A fateful encounter with the fairy Noi sets Nayuta and his friends on a path to explore beyond the borders of their island home in order to stop a dark plot. Pernell, this one has been on Steam for a while, but it finally just got an English release. What is going on in this game?
So this is a game that's been on my radar for a while because it first popped up for me on the Nintendo eShop like 2 years ago with one of those placeholder dates in the coming soon section of like 2023 December. And then it disappeared. And then out of nowhere, it popped up this year. And then I learned that it's actually a port of a game that originally released on like the PSP back in the day that we never got. So being that it's a Falcom game, the fact that it's old is actually a good thing because their games aged very well. And I feel like this one is no different, despite the fact that it is a little what I was expecting, but also not at the same time.
In what ways?
This isn't, well, for one, I was thinking by the name being Legend of Nayuta and originally the game having a placeholder image with no actual game information for it, I was expecting to be a reference to like one of the games in the Legend of Heroes series. And it is not. It's his own game. It just happens to have the legend of la 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 in there, just I guess maybe to get that little extra push of like commonality to move some extra copies. But it is an action RPG, and the action combat, while not as fast as something like say E7 was, which also released on the PSP, it is still fun combat. and actually engaging, but not too complicated for that matter. So the idea behind this game is, things are awry in the land of, in the continent where Nayuta is from. He meets the fairy Noi, and they end up going to, well, I guess like the Star Garden, essentially, where they are engaging in their adventure to, pretty much stop an evil man, basically typical narrative stuff. Stop an evil man and his henchmen, figure out why your friend's being a jerk, and also get some cool power-ups along the way. So that's what we're doing. And the way this plays out is this is not one of those action RPGs where you get a world map and you run around and whatnot. Instead, you have a map, but you choose stages to play. So there's 4 continents. You go to each one a bit at a time, and these continents have stages on them. When you go onto the level, you are engaged in a pretty, sometimes short, sometimes lengthy level where you just need to kind of complete the stage. But there are goals associated with this completion for bonus goodies. But before I talk about the bonus goodies, what the hell can you actually do? Well, the main character, before you learn any extra abilities, he can run, he can jump, he can default double jump, and he has a basic melee attack. However, he's also paired with Noi, the fairy. And Noi is your proponent for magic attacks. She starts with 1. That's just a basic fire bolt that throws fireballs. And when you use it, instead of having like a typical, like an MP gauge, it's just a gauge that just says how many times you can use the skill before you can't anymore. Like a specific number. And it refills over time, or it refills faster if you do a lot of basic melee attacks with Nayuta.
Yeah. Aki has a quick question. Can you replay stages?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but you absolutely can. In fact, it's encouraged. So because... And like as I mentioned before earlier, with the things you can get with the extra goals, when you enter a stage has a series of missions that it wants you to fulfill, so to speak. There's like these crystals that are lying around hidden in the stages, where breaking them gives you extra money. But the game wants you to find all the crystals hidden on the stage. Also, there's a treasure chest or 2 hidden on stages. They want you to find all of those. And there's generally a bonus mission that's descriptive, such as beat the stage in a certain amount of time or kill X number of enemies, etc., etc. And by completing those missions, you get stars, my favorite thing, 3 stars at that. And by getting those stars, you stamp an adventurer book. Get enough stars, you can go back to the main town hub, talk to your master, quote unquote, and he will teach you a new ability that will help kind of expand upon your combat abilities. Noi's abilities are generally found by getting new spells that you find in combat or in like treasure chests, and they can all be leveled up to get more uses and more power. That's how her spells get better, whereas Nayuta's skills get better, or his strength gets better by leveling up and also buying new equipment, a la every other action RPG on the planet. So I honestly find like this is actually pretty fun to engage in, but they did a little extra thing to make you go back to stages even more so than the typical, which is seasons. As you play through the game, you will get access to what's called Master Gears. They are story MacGuffin items, but in addition to being a story MacGuffin, they actually have an impact on your gameplay experience too, because each stage you play on takes place during a different season, like spring, summer, fall, or winter. Eventually, you can change the season on stages. And by changing the season on said stages, the environment changes, the enemies change, their strength changes, and they change all the goals and requirements for the level too. So it'll incentivize you to go back to old levels with new seasons to do more stuff to get more items and just kind of engage in the game. And honestly, I find the game to be pretty fun. The levels are just long enough to feel like snappy and fun, but at the same time, due to the encouragement to go back to old stages and such, I don't feel as though you're being cheated by having short stages. It's nice short bursts. Probably the reason why the fact that it was originally released on the PSP helps with why they made short stages too. But I find this game to be pretty fun. The voice acting is really good. The music obviously is good as Falcom Sound Team JDK, and those guys can't do any wrong. If you disagree with me, you're wrong. That's fine with me. But this is a good game. It's not particularly difficult. It's not particularly complicated. I'm playing it on hard mode right now, and I had no problems as far as like combat difficulty goes, which is surprising because, typical ease games on hard and nightmare mode, they will give you problems. But no, this game has been pretty solid. I like it. And I was going to, well, I know you hate when I say this, but I was going to buy it, got a review of it, and my take on it is that this, you know it, let's be real here. That's just how this whole thing works. And I feel as though I would have still bought this game. Like, this is a game I would have been happy to have purchased. Like, this is not, because sometimes I have bought games, then get a review code later, and I'm like, man, I wish I didn't buy that game. Shoot. This is one of those games where I think it is worth the money. I was going to buy it, and I still feel as though that decision would have been valid because this is a fun time, and it is typical Falcom, Nihon Falcom, game candy. So
cool. Well, if you do pick it up in the first week or so, it includes the official soundtrack that is only available this way in America and will not be released separately as of now. So if you want the soundtrack, grab the game ASAP.
Yeah,
and hope
that is
the option
definitely
is still there. So $40 on this one. What do you think of it?
Easy buy it.
Cool. All right, next up, AK-xolotl, developed by Two Awesome Studio, published by PlayStack, released September 14th on Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch, PS4, PS5, and PC for $18.99. The cutest, deadliest, and only top-down roguelike shooter featuring AK-wielding axolotls. Blast your way through the animal kingdom with an arsenal of kick-ass guns, mighty power-ups, and even raise an army of trigger-happy baby axolotls. Andy, tell us about your time with AK-xolotl.
Ooh, it was so good. I really enjoyed it. And like it, I like you just said, you hate this, but I was planning on buying this one too. I tried the demo out before, obviously the official release, but I was hooked. I love me some twin stick shooters, and I was pretty happy with this one. But let me tell you about it. So as you know, it is a twin stick shooter, bullet hell action roguelike. Basically, a bunch of cute creatures running around and shooting stuff. You begin your experience with like two separate modes, which was really cool too. Either the normal mode for just the regular difficulty settings, everything, or you could do AK-xolotl mode, which was kind of fun, and clever play on words, where you actually get like guns with more damage, more health as you start off like each level, and like fewer enemies and things like that. So I played a little bit of both. The normal mode was really difficult, and even the AK-xolotl mode was quite a challenge too. So it's a very like challenging game for what it is as well. But as usual, the whole idea is to play these games, find new power-ups, upgrade your guys and stuff like that. So it takes you through kind of some quick tutorials. It's a twin stick shooter. You can also play it with mouse and keyboard. Roll, dodge, aim, shoot enemies, the basic stuff. You have little blockades like in the level, but there's also like riverbeds you can jump over to, which kind of helps like, keep enemies away from you. Once you do all that, you're dropped into the main hub. So this is where you're going to go to every time your AK-xolotl fails, at killing all the enemies in the biomes. So, you're gonna get a couple things right at the beginning. You get a starter gun, you get a cook pot, and that's about it. So you go through and basically, jump into the biomes. The first weapon you get is the AK, as in AK-xolotl, and start plowing through these biomes. There's 5 different biomes that you can go through. They are like the forest, like a wasteland. One had kind of like an Asian vibe to it. There's a swamp, and then there was one that was really cool. I don't know what you would call it exactly, but it was like the realms of the elder gods or so.
Oh, interesting.
And so that was pretty neat.
I didn't get far enough to see that stuff. Like I'm not good at these games, even with the aim assist on extreme, which thank you for having that, devs. Having the aim assist is awesome. I'm terrible at dodging. I suck at dodge roll.
Well, did you try the AK-xolotl mode?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was gonna say
that's what I immediately picked to start.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Oh, so I did normal mode at first, and I was like, okay, this is cool, But I wanted to see like what else the game had too, because everything you have to go through and unlock a bunch of stuff. But there are a bunch of special items that you collect throughout the game that improve your character stats or the gun stats. or tweak things a little bit, like increase your gun damage, or increase damage, but also like decrease your accuracy by a bunch, or so. And I think it counted 60 special items that you can unlock throughout the game, 40 guns, the 5 different biomes, 32 like special weapons aside from like the 8 starter guns. So there's a lot of stuff you go through and like unlock too. And then you're fighting all these like cute characters too, which was really neat. There's rats, there's caterpillars, there's there's mice, there's alligators, birds that drop bombs on you. Yeah, and it's all like
ducks.
Exploding ducks. There's all kinds of crazy stuff too, and they're all wielding guns or explosives, or there's like, I just found actually the last playthrough I did. There's like these little bunnies that appear every once in a while, and it will just explode on you, which is crazy. I didn't see that forever. But they're all really tough, and they all kind of have their own weapons, and they're all like, their own like attack type, which is really neat too. So they definitely put a lot of, love and labor into that side of it. There are 5 main bosses that you go through. I'm not going to tell you what they are because I would like you to play it and just figure it out yourself. But they are pretty difficult actually. You're collecting weapons throughout each of the biomes. You're collecting these like cookies and recipe ingredients, and I'll get into that a little bit more too. And gems and things, that help you. So you're doing a lot of collecting, also trying to choose which door to, pick which level to go to next after beating a world, or beating a level in the biome. It's just all so much is going on in this game, It's really cool. But it's great, it's an awesome game. You collect little baby axolotls as well, which is neat, and then you can kind of raise them and give them special stats. They really took it a step further so that you can gear one towards like being a gunslinger, and so you get like certain weapon types are a little bit better, or being a gangster, or an explosive expert and things like that. So you get a little bit of bonus there too. And then there's NPCs that sell you stuff. There's NPCs that, kind of keep track of all the weapons and special items that you get. There's one that which was kind of cool. If you bring the baby axolotls to, he'll actually like drain their happiness level, and you use that drained happiness level to like upgrade your axolotls too. So nice. For future in-game runs. Yeah, so I mean, there's so much to this, and you're cooking ingredients to grow these babies up into strong young men and young women, to fight for you, and it's I don't know, it's all just crazy. It was cool. It was a really fun time. The game was great. The soundtrack was really heavy. It's by Jose Mora, and it just gets heavier like the deeper into the game you go. Nice. There were a couple things that I would like to see in maybe some future updates or so. When I played it, I noticed a couple of bugs, just like the hitboxes were off a little bit, or, I'd go into a shop, in the biomes, and I couldn't buy something even though I had like enough money for it. So just little things that, just need a little double checking. Also, there's like items that you pick up. So every time you clear a level, you get like a chest. And occasionally you'll get the choice between multiple items, And those are your special items that like help you for the rest of the run. And you had to pick one, and then it appears like down below the chest. And so you have to pick it, and then you have to pick it up, which a couple of times, like, luckily I noticed it, but I walked out of the room without even picking it up too, and was wondering like where it went, and it was it's not something huge, but it was just a little tweak that, I thought would make the experience a little bit better. And then I played it so many times. I liked it, every time I played it, but these games are designed to play over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you beat it. And so I was hoping, like I said, maybe in future updates, there's a second optional boss for the levels, or for the biomes, I should say, or or just a couple little tweaks here and there, just to make each biome a little more unique, as you guys like to say. So yeah, but overall, I thought the game was good. I enjoyed it. I had fun.
Nice. Well, it clocks in at $18.99. What are your thoughts?
I would say get it. This is a game that has a lot of replay value. I mean, it's designed for replay value. It's on sale right now on Steam, which is pretty cool too. $17.09 it looks like.
Very good.
But yeah, it's I put in, I don't know, probably close to 20 hours already, and I'm gonna continue because I have to beat it. I have to now.
Very good.
But yeah, I'd say get it.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, Andy, that is it for you. And seemingly on cue, Chris showed up here, so I guess he's tagging in. You're tagging out.
Howdy.
Perfect.
Welcome to hang out if you want to just chill.
Yeah, you're welcome to stick around if you want, but you're finished if you would prefer to head out.
I would love to stay. I gotta go beat up some kids though.
Oh, okay.
I got the wife watching all three of them, so she was nice enough to let me jump on here. So
well, we will let you go so you can have fun with your kids. We assume you mean beating them in video games.
Yes. I don't actually beat my kids. No, but I appreciate you guys letting me come on. Let me review this game too. This was awesome. I love this.
Where can people keep up to date with you and what you're doing?
I'm all over the socials. I'm on Twitter. I'm on X. What was I gonna say? Xbox. I'm on Stream, Twitch, all the things. Discord. You can find me in the SML Discord. Every once in a while. Sperry Berry or Sperry Berry Beast. Some iteration of that. You'll find me there.
Nice. Well, you have yourself a wonderful night, and we will catch you again next time.
You as well. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, guys.
Take it easy.
Catch you later, good sir. Have a good night.
You too. Later, guys.
Oh, Chris, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I overslept for some reason.
I don't blame you. I was saying at the start of the show that I would sleep too if I could.
Yeah, well, the plan was to sleep and then wake up in time to do the show, but yeah, that's...
Well, you didn't miss anything. We just did 2 reviews and we're about to do another one of Pernell's, so you ready for these?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Next game to talk about is Bit.trip RERUNNER, developed by Choice Provisions and Gamecraft Studios, published by Choice Provisions, released September 19th on Steam for $19.99. Classic rhythm platformer is back as Bit.trip RERUNNER and Runner Maker. The fun of the original now sports fresh mechanics, art, and soundtrack, plus Runner Maker, which allows you to create custom levels. A must-play for rhythm newbies, experts, and everyone in between. Pernell, tell us about your time with Bit.trip RERUNNER.
So, Bit.trip RERUNNER is a game that I was interested in because I haven't messed with this series in a little bit, but I was quite fond of the original Bit.trip Runner and even a little bit of the Rhythm Alien one because, it had Charles Martinet as the narrator. You can't go wrong with that. So, of course, I'm down with giving another game a shot. And this game is a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B because while there are some original levels here, one of the big hooks to this game is the fact that it is pretty much the original Bit.trip Runner in here, too. You unlock it. And there's a couple remix levels in this. But basically what I would do is I'll describe the main game and then try to describe some of the other stuff while also just outright telling you I have no idea what the hell's going on in Community Zone. I tried and just said, screw it, I give up. So the game is essentially an auto runner, but it's an auto runner with a bit of rhythm attached to it and a series of functions and commands you can put in to make your run not fail. So your commander video, you run from left to right to get to the end of the level. Commander video apparently loves gold bars. So as you're running through the level, you will see gold bars on the ground or in the sky, and you want to collect those things. And you also need to dodge or break through certain obstacles in order to progress as well. So what can Commander Video actually do? Well, he can run, he can jump, he can kick, he can slide, he can guard, and he can hit springs to jump higher when he hits said spring. And last but not least, he can dance. Man, he can get down. So these are all things you have to do. Well, aside from the dancing is just for bonus points. But these are all things you have to do during the levels to get through them in one piece. And the game starts out pretty simple. It'll just basically say, here, run through this level, collect some gold. Then they'll say, run through this level, collect some gold, and you'll jump over some obstacles. And they gradually introduce the individual commands to you until eventually you're juggling all the commands at once. And you don't know what the hell's going on sometimes because you might be paying attention to the left side of the screen and not enough attention to the right side, and you don't prime your moves in time, and then boom, you die. Though the game is fairly generous with check marks or checkpoints too. So if you die, you'll get spawned back at a checkpoint. You can try again and try again. You're ultimately trying to make it so that you get to the end of a level, collecting all the gold bars, and doing so in such a way that you're able to pretty much fulfill the obligatory check mark application to say, hey, I completed this level. Because if you can complete the level by getting all the gold bars, you unlock new elements, such as, for example, a boombox. Sometimes you can get a boombox, and the boombox items are how you unlock the bonus level content that's in this game, including, like I mentioned before, the entirety of Bit.trip Runner using the new graphical art style. But then there's also other things like playing Bit.trip Runner Rerunner levels, but you're using music for some of the other Bit.trip games. So it's just a way to get access to levels with music from other versions of the game. It kind of has a sort of like greatest hits sort of deal.
Speaking of the music,
which is kind of cool.
We have to disclose the fact that the music in the game was done by the original composer Matthew Hardwood and remixes by our good friend Stemage.
Let's be honest here. That's not a have to disclose. That's we're doing a public service by disclosing that because the music is good. Stemage is good with composing music. I mean, we're telling people this is a good reason to look into this game because you're going to hear some jams if you buy it.
Absolutely. And the soundtrack is available on Steam and on Bandcamp for $5. Throwing it out there, regardless of what people think of the game or not, the soundtrack is a must-own for $5.
Well, that's the funny thing, though. Like, this is one of those games where the franchise has been running for over a decade at this point. Like, I feel like people know what they want out of this now. Like, if you haven't liked it at this point, this might not change your mind, though I still recommend giving it another chance because I don't know why you don't like it. But Bit.trip Runner has always been a fun time for me. It was probably the first quote-unquote auto runner game that I actually came to appreciate and like. Because, one, even though it's not like 100% on beat per se, the music does still in a way contribute to the game's performance because bullets are flying at you to a sort of pacing of the music, which gives you the feeling that you can kind of block or dodge to the rhythm of the music. And I think when you get the pro level, you probably are doing that. But I'm still that guy where it's just like, okay, I can hear the music there happening, but I'm not dodging to it. I just want to dodge the damn bullets. I clearly see them. I'm getting the hell out of the way. But the music is in tune to the things that are happening on the screen. And when you collect gold, it is adding sounds to the song itself. It's an added sound, a key sound for the game, which is nice. And it's just fun. And due to the fact that I feel personally that retries don't take a lot of time to pull off, it's not even like an issue of you dying. It's just, crap, I died, try again. Crap, I died, try again. And make no mistake about it, you're going to die a lot. Because once they start hitting you with like all like the complex order of operations of activities and the ability to apply to actually engage those activities, or those annoying jumps where you have to jump early so that you drop down just at the edge of the cliff you're on, so that you drop and grab a gold bar. Weird timings like that they slap in here that is going to have you pulling your hair out to get it right each and every time, and that's part of what makes it enjoyable too. So. I'm going to fully disclose here, I did not mess with the runner maker, which is the level constructor. However, I did mess around with some of the levels that you can play that people have created. And that is kind of cool.
That's basically infinite Bit.trip at this point.
Pretty much.
With the runner maker.
Yes. And honestly, the way I found them was because I attempted to make use of Community Zone, and I could not understand the menu to save my damn life, but I did pick a level that looked like apparently Stemage had done. It was considered his favorite level at the time. So I was like, I'll give this a try. Or maybe it wasn't Stemage's favorite level and he just composed a song for it. I don't know. He may have even created the level. Again, I have no idea what the hell is going on in this menu. I saw Stemage's name on it, though. So I tried to do it, got my ass handed to me promptly, and said, wow, this guy is a beast if he's doing this. But I digress. Bit.trip Rerunner rather, is a remake slash update of a game that has developed a following and has earned that following for good reason. And it's just another way to revisit this fantastic franchise. And like you said earlier, with the runner creator, it's pretty much infinite Bit.trip. So if you find yourself feeling like you want to just have access to more and more a la Mario Maker, well, look no further than this. You will be playing this game till you die, and that's perfectly fine because you'll be tapping your foot all the way to the grave.
Nice. Stemage apparently did create a level in the game. He said it's called Boo Gargeddon.
That was it. So he was the creator of that level.
Yeah, he made that level. That's his level.
Now tell him if he's in the chat, then tell him he's an ass because that level.
I'm looking at my Facebook chat because I remember him saying I made my first level the other day. It was a blast. I don't even like making levels and things. I just like playing everyone else's. It's called Boo Gargeddon, but be warned, it's hard.
Yep, he's not lying. It is hard because it kicked the crap out of me. And I am in the same mindset as he is up until him making his own level, which is that I just kind of like playing other people's levels. And I'm glad there are people out there that love building levels for people to try. So I'm all in for something like that. So
that's great that you played Grant's level. I'm so happy.
Yeah, that level, I was like, oh my freaking God, this level's brutal. It is hard. He earned that shit. Oops. I mean, he earned that mess.
You could say shit on this. Whatever.
I know we can, man.
The game clocks in at $20. What are your thoughts?
Easy recommend. This is a good game. There's a lot of content here. And again, endless Bit.trip. You can't go wrong with that. And good music to boot. So go ahead and give it a shot.
Cool. All right, next up is Isekai Rondo, developed by EXE-CREATE, published by KEMCO, released September 15th on Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch, PS4, PS5, and PC for $14.99. Quest for a parallel universe after being reborn with the ultimate job. Chris, I don't know what that means. Please explain it to me.
Well, okay. Oh, can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, Isekai Rondo. So this is a KEMCO EXE-CREATE RPG, and this is actually a new one. This one was, as far as I know, has, maybe, I think this one has been created in the last year. It's kind of easy to tell sometimes when a game is fairly new, because as I've said in many of my KEMCO EXE-CREATE reviews, is that they get better every time,
Yeah.
Like if the game's from like 10 years ago, I can often tell right away, like the last one we talked about. So yeah, this is a new, a pretty new RPG from KEMCO in their kind of mobile line, mobile to console line of I would call them like between 16 and 32-bit RPGs. So this one, we see this from time to time in JRPGs and especially anime, but this is an isekai, which is that's a story where somebody usually gets pulled from the real world into like a fantasy world. We see that a lot, happening and stuff, but they gave it a name like recently, and this one is straight up that. It's like you start off with your main character being like a very unsuccessful office lackey, and then due to unfortunate but actually kind of funny circumstances, he ends up dying, question marks in parentheses, in his world, and waking up in the body of a similarly aged male protagonist of a RPG in the world that he's in. So, but he's not a protagonist right away. That is to say, he is the protagonist. It's all seen through his eyes. But what I mean is that he is the least popular hero ever. He is kind of a fourth wheel that got left behind after getting lost by the RPG party of bandits that he was tagging along with. So it's presumed that whomever occupied that body and colored his hair purple and pink has passed on, and our person is now occupying that person. And so along the way, he meets the secondary character, who is always female and a love interest, possibly. Her name's Viola, and by the way, our hero is given the name Shaw. Although we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then, of course, we meet the other two characters very soon after. But unlike a lot of the KEMCO games, these two actually are pretty fun. They're a brother and sister duo of demons, because in this world, demons are just regular people. Pretty much, they're just another race that, but they got this whole explanation as to what demons are. But for our purposes, these are just another race. And the brother's name is Drought and the sister's name is Famine, but they're spelled like DROWT and FAMIN. And we'll talk more about Famine in a second. But yeah, basically, in this world, he joins a guild because and teams up with the lady who's kind of a badass and has a secret. She's secretly more badass, but she also has other secrets that you don't know about yet.
Dun, dun,
And it's because he is given a special power, or his character has a special power. There's a thing in this world called passives, which is just something that a passive is just like a skill that you collect. Like, if you learn how to type, then your passive skill is typing, right? That's kind of how they treat things. But he has the power to just observe and kind of absorb. So it's like if a passive is used around him, then he can kind of absorb it and start using it as well. He can also see people for he can basically see skills in a sense. Like, he can see how good a person is and how morally good they are as well, because that's a kind of a binary in this world. But so yeah, that means that he can see and learn more than an average person, which of course for our storytelling purposes makes things very convenient, because he can kind of cut through and see the core of things. And also, of course, this being an isekai, it's got world building almost exclusively through everybody telling the hero what's up in this world, which is a very convenient plot device that they will definitely take advantage of. So that's the story of it. I always like the story in these things, but this one's actually pretty compelling, which is good because it's long. This is as far as KEMCO games go, this is the longest one that I've had from starting the game to being able to walk around in a dungeon and fight enemies. It was like, I want to say it's about an hour, although I kept coming back to it, so... But yeah, it just kept going. I just kept getting interrupted by more story. You visit 2 towns and an actual dungeon before you're actually allowed to do things. Oh, and you have to escape a deserted island that has no encounters on it. So that's another thing. It's all this stuff. But yeah, once it gets going though, it's pretty fun. The battle system is a kind of so KEMCO for a couple years there. With the EXE-CREATE games, they had a habit of getting a little too complicated, just a few too many systems. This one has the benefit of being, of hindsight, so it's a little more simplified. The menu is nice and tight. You can look at all your character stuff by clicking on the character in the menu. There's only 6 things on the left, and they're pretty simple. Although this game does have, some systems in it, it's got the special currency with the shop that you have to save before you can access so you don't cheat it. That has 4 different things that can happen. So you can actually, and the cool thing is I tried it a few times. For one, this game does not dump 1,000 of those dollars in your laps that you can just spend it all right away and get the best game-breaking weapons right away. That's kind of a habit that they do. The items that you get are more they have interesting effects. I got a stick for Shaw that because he uses sticks. He's kind of a sage wizard, which is interesting. That's the main character's role. The secondary character is the swordsman. But yeah, I got a stick that doesn't make him too much stronger. It makes everyone else stronger for him to have it. So it's it's interesting items, not just this has 1,000 attack points. Good luck to all the enemies out there. The guild actually has quests you can take on, and there are side quests and stuff, and some of them actually do wrap up into the story. the game does feel like it has a little bit more of an organic situation going on, as far as like you're not just traveling from town to town and visiting the local dungeon to solve the local problem. In fact, the world map is just it's just a world map that you just select where you want to go and you go there. And they separate out the towns and dungeons. And the dungeon is another interesting thing because so there's like a main dungeon for the first part of the game that you keep going to as part of your guild, and it's actually like it's set up a little bit like a roguelike. There's several levels, and you have to get like a higher rank in the guild before you can go to lower levels, and you get ranks, of course, by doing quests and side quests. But because you're entering this dungeon all the time, the shape of the dungeon does not change, but they will refill all the treasure chests. So as you're walking through this dungeon again, you can still be picking up items. It freshens it up a little bit, which is nice. There's also ways that you can like make the encounters harder if you're, going through the first floor and you're like, I don't want to fight these guys, and then you can change that and stuff too. But of course, there's also the out of game DLC purchases that you can make. That's still running strong, and of course,
there's only 3 on this one though.
True, it's $14 I think worth of DLC. I was about to look at it, but
yeah, there's an experience times 3, a damage times 2, and a no skill cost. So
no, that's right. There's not a no encounters thing. That's right.
It's nothing that's like hyper necessary. It's just if you want to make the game a little easier.
Yeah, and speaking of easier too, the game also has a really robust, probably more robust than I've ever seen, auto battling system. So you can actually, if you're familiar with something like Dragon Quest, like the newer Dragon Quest, you know that auto battle is like not only a way that you can just not have to push so many buttons, but you can kind of give your characters each their own kind of strategy and be say this one. You want this one character to go all out, but you want this other character to focus on healing, and you want this other character to like just not use magic because you gotta save that for later. This game actually gives you all the parameters for every single character, and you can set each one how you want. So you got your like normal attack, your arts attack, your art support, magic special attacks, magic special skills support, and items, and you can set them from use often and kind of toggle each one down to never, so you can like, if you want your character to attack a lot, but maybe sometimes use an art attack or a magic attack, then, which by the way, like all the KEMCO EXE-CREATE RPGs, they have separate art and separate magic commands that are kind of handled separately, but we'll get to, this review will be too long if I start getting into the old stuff. But yeah, like you can actually set your auto battle to be very particular. So, and of course, like you actually do want to auto battle because it will cause some characters to do like basically double moves. So it works a little bit like Phantasy Star 4 in that way. Like you had characters that could do double skills based on like your macros and what you set them to do and such. And so this game kind of retains a little bit of that, and it's actually pretty fun to play with. So even the auto battle is like I said, pretty involved. So it's a pretty cool involved game.
Well, it clocks in at $15. What are your thoughts on this one?
Currently, I would say I would recommend this particular KEMCO EXE-CREATE the most right now for folks who are like looking to get the most for their money. Because yeah, this is definitely improved over like anything else that I've played from them recently, and a lot of the stuff they've released recently has been kind of older stuff or like just way out of left field. For a classic KEMCO EXE-CREATE RPG, if you're into such a thing, this one's definitely good. Oh, and I said I would get back to Famine, the fourth character that you get. She actually introduces a mechanic that we've seen before from the Slime Girl in Antiquia Lost, which is like from about 10 years ago. She can eat enemies. She has eating moves, but she can eat items, like spare items, and turn that into experience points for like certain parameters to be improved and stuff. So you got an eater in the group this time, which is pretty cool. And of course, very appropriate that her name is Famine, even though she's a little girl. Like she literally has a red hood. Like she's a little Red Riding Hood type of demon girl, which is pretty great. Anyway, I like Famine a lot. So like, and again, I Antiquia Lost is one of my favorite KEMCO EXE-CREATE RPGs. So it's nice to see a throwback to one of the main characters of that game.
Nice.
So there you go.
This is a good
it's
one.
a buy it. Yeah, it's a buy it.
Awesome. All right. Next up is Boti, Byteland, Overclocked. Developed by Purple Ray Studio, published by Untold Tales, released September 15th on Steam for $19.99. Jump, dash, slide, dive into a classic 3D platformer experience with Boti, Byteland Overclocked. Explore the awesomely stylized insides of a computer with Boti and save Byteland from an ominous threat. Play solo or team up with a friend in an engaging co-op mode. Pernell, tell us about your time with Boti, Byteland Overclocked.
Okay, I'm going to preface this by outright noting that I play this on the Steam Deck. It might factor into what I am saying, but I need to get that out the way. So, Boti is a 3D platformer / collectathon featuring you as the character Boti, who is teamed up with his computer assist programs 0 and 1, as he is ultimately he's a new program in this computer world. And immediately as soon as he comes into the said world, he goes off on a bit of an adventure to try to essentially do better by his mentor, Colonel. He believes that, or rather 0 and 1 believe that a good way to get things up and running more efficiently is to overclock the computer system that they live in. Those who are not familiar with computers but have attempted to overclock their computers will probably know what generally happens when you do something like that without, the right knowledge in doing so. In which case, in this game, things go haywire, viruses start to invade the world, and Colonel goes missing. So as a result, Boti 0 and 1 go on an adventure to figure out where Colonel is and also hopefully, restore their world to its original peaceful order. And this is done over the course of progressing through a series of platforming hop and bop stages. Boti can jump, he can swing his head in attacking enemies, and he has a bit of an air dash ability. Those are his default things. I always say that because you always earn new abilities in these games, but I always just I like to say what you can do from the start, but you will get other abilities to help you traverse as you progress through the game. Now, what you're going to end up doing is you start out in a training area where you'll learn these new moves and what you can do, and the overall general flow of exploring the stages. And then you'll be sent to progress through a series of stages from the hub world. There's not a ton. The game is kind of short on that regard, but just nice, fun stages to kind of run around and explore. When you're running through stages, the general flow is that you are going to run about and you're going to destroy a bunch of different objects or crates, as it were, even. And by doing so, you'll find bits of 0s and 1, bits of data. And that data is used for two things. One is used to progress through certain areas of the game. Like they're like little walls on the stages where you have to spend a certain amount of data bits to progress beyond that part in the game. The other thing you can do with it is take it back to the hub world and spend it in different areas to expand said hub world. Sometimes they're good for upgrading your character. Other times it just looks really cool when you want to expand the hub world. Then, aside from that, there's also areas where you'll be doing cool little mini games like a slide where you have to kind of hit musical notes on the way down said slide while dodging obstacles. And that's a way for you to gain some of the game's MacGuffins or collectibles. And beyond that, also, you'll be beating up a lot of enemies through way of your headbutting skills. And sometimes you'll just be solving light puzzles using some of your abilities. For example, one of the ones that from early in the game is the magnetism, which you'll use for the push and pulling of squares, but also to repel yourself by propelling you across pits and stuff like that from a slingshot. The game is fun, but it has some issues that makes it hard for me to just give it a genuine, just go ahead and recommend it to people. And those issues also kind of gave me issues with my experience with the game too. For example, before the game got patched, there were moments where I would have issues where I'd be trying to cross a pit, and the pit has platforms I can jump on in order to allow me to cross the pit, but then I'll jump on one of them and I'll fall right through it. So I'm unable to actually traverse the pit in the proper manner because the platform isn't solid. This is not a gameplay mechanic where it's just one of those, oh, wow, it's a fake platform. No, it's just a platform that wasn't there. even though it should be there. And much of the time, almost all the times, I've lucked out and I've been able to come up with a way to like, okay, if I can just do this jump in this manner, I can kind of propel and grab a platform beyond it and pull myself up. But there were a few times where it was enough of an issue where I was like, I'm putting this thing down. I can't play this for a while. I'll come back later and figure it out. But it is still an issue that persists even now after the game's been patched. It's not as common. I will put that out there. It's not as common, but it still happens. And when it does, it can be a bit of an annoyance. Another thing that seems kind of weird to me is that the occasional moments in the game, you'll get a power-up that's timed that will allow you to do something different. Most notably, there's a power-up that gives Boti a wheel. And the wheel allows Boti to roll a little bit faster so he can like kind of grind along rails and stuff a little quicker. Or grind or roll through tubes and such. The problem here is that I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but the power-up runs out before you get to the end of the section that seems to have been designed to use the power-up. But there's no new pickup. Because, sometimes the game is timed where it's like, okay, here's a power-up, but you better move fast and get the new version of the power before this one wears off, or you're in a lot of trouble. But in this case, it just wears off. You're like, okay, now I'm just running through this tube when originally I was rolling through the tube, or I was grinding on this rail. Now I'm tiptoeing across the rail. Why didn't it give me the wheel to begin with if it's not going to at least get me past the area that was clearly designed to use the power-up? These are things, all these things can be patched, mind you, but they're just things that came into play, and they definitely hindered my experience with the game. But when the game worked well, I was enjoying myself. I like the voice work in the game. 0 and 1 their voices are endearing, though sometimes they get a little repetitive in the combat sections. But I like their voices. I like the voice of the old man Colonel, and every once in a while when you come across the levels, you'll find a pick up a collectible that's essentially like a message from Colonel, where he's describing elements of the game world you're in. And I like hearing those too. I like the world they created here quite a bit. And I like the fact that it's also designed in such a way that even though there's a lot of NPCs bouncing around doing their own thing, but you don't have to necessarily engage with all of them. They're just here being present, which means it gives you a living, breathing world, so to speak. So you can just kind of see them doing their thing and living their lives. And every once in a while you can walk across a guy who's got a speech bubble. He'll talk to you or he'll just say something inane that gives you the impression that this is a guy living in the world, experiencing the issues that you're walking by as you see them happening. I like things like that too. And quite frankly, like I said, when the game is doing what it's supposed to do, I think the game is actually legitimately fun. So I would like to revisit this if they end up putting out a few more patches or something and they message to let us know that we can talk about it some more. But as it is, I can't outright recommend it because of those weird frustrations. Because even though they have come a long way since they started patching the game, there are still issues here that I'd feel guilty staying by this game, knowing that someone's going to take my recommendation, go to a platform stage, jump on a platform, fall through it, and say, Pernell told me this game would be good, and I can't get across this path. I can't get across this pit for some dumb reason. So I just wanted to make those things known. However, if you hear what I'm saying, and you hear that I'm telling you that I think the game is fun for the most part, and you don't care about the patch issues, or you believe that they will patch it eventually and you'd rather just start playing it until they patch it, then by all means go for it, because if said patches come through, I do believe I'd give this a high and try it. But until that happens, until I can feel comfortable knowing that, I can't give it that right now.
Well, for $20, what is your official verdict for now?
For now, it has to be a deny it. But if something changes, they do some more patches, I'd like to revisit this.
Cool. Well, I will mark it down for us to revisit in a month or so. We'll come back to it and give it another boot and see how things look. And if it's worth updating, we'll mention it on the show. If not, well, how things went. It looks cute, though. So hopefully they get it working. I will laugh my ass off if they reply and they're like, yeah, it's because he's on Steam Deck.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I know Steam Deck is related to the performance, but that's the thing about this kind of stuff, right? It's like Steam Deck, its main things should be frame rate and graphics, right? To me, that's what it usually boils down to.
It should work, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it should work. Like, performance would be Steam Deck issues. But any patches that would fix, like disappearing platform, rather non, conforming platforms or event triggers not registering, those things should not be dependent on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
That's a game issue. So, and honestly, let's be honest, if they even come back and say, please try it on the computer, I have my laptop here. I mean, it's like it was a gaming laptop in 2021. So I can't imagine this game not running on that. So I'd be totally fine trying it there too. But
all right, well, moving on. Next game is Holua's Arcade, developed and published by Raven Travel Studios, released September 1st on Steam for $4.99. Get ready to dive back into the pure joy of gaming. Prepare yourself for 4 thrilling games inspired by the arcade genre's all-time favorites, from challenging platformers to epic space battles and classic beat-em-up action. It's like having 4 arcade machines at your fingertips. Chris, what is going on in Holua's Arcade?
Okay, so this is an interesting one. Rather than being simply a just a collection of 4 games that are just there, this is it's got a little bit more of a meta to it, which is kind of interesting. So you play, I'm guessing you're Holua. It's there's no real story in this game as far as I can tell. I wasn't able to really access one. I just kind of had to guess at everything. But she's a roller skating girl with a parasol, I suppose you would say, an umbrella of some kind, who's skating around in this arcade. So the arcade has 4 machines in it, a couple of friends, or you can purchase hints about the games and like some other trivia and stuff. There's also a bar with like a classy bartender lizard, which is kind of nice. And a little bulletin board that has, all of the stuff that you unlock on it, all the info and everything. And then there's the outside, which we'll get to in a minute. So yeah, there's 4 arcade games that you play. Now the thing about it is that you have a limited amount of tokens that you can play the arcade games with. So it's not just that you're playing 4 arcade games and enjoying them just for that. You actually have a limited amount of times that you can both play and continue. So there is actually a potential of, this isn't rich kid strats. You actually have to bring your money to this game or to these games, in the meta, which is, really interesting. And the way that you do that is to go outside and actually fight enemies in a kind of, it reminds me a lot of like the Wonder Boy remakes, or the, Wonder Boy and Monster World specifically. It's like platforming, really bright, hand-painted, hand-drawn looking kind of action where, your roller skating girl now can platform and attack enemies with her parasol, and they drop coins, and those coins can be exchanged for more tokens, or you can exchange them for hints on the actual games, or, like that other stuff from the friends that are in that arcade. Or, like I said, you can go to the bar, get a drink, and refill your health. Because your health, if it runs out, you run out of, you go back down to 0 on the tokens. So, or on the coins, rather. And, of course, I think the tokens stay after you die. I did not die to find out, so. So, yeah, there's, like, this whole world outside of this arcade to experience and earn lots of money so that you can play these games. So, yeah, that's a really unique approach, I suppose. But yeah, let's talk about the games themselves. So we have Heist of the Ninja, which is a single screen. And by the way, these games are presented as kind of like 80s style arcade games. Really nice on the graphics. They all kind of share a similar graphical style, so they don't seem like, one's not like a 3D racing game among, like some other stuff that has like a Space Invaders knockoff with an overlay or anything like that. They're 4 kind of similarly late 80s, early 90s kind of games. So Heist of the Ninja is a single screen puzzle platformer where, as a ninja, you have to sneak in and defeat enemies that also kind of come at you from everywhere. But you're there for a heist, so you have to like push the up button and hold it down for a certain amount of time to look behind things, and you're trying to uncover scrolls, and you need a certain amount of scrolls to get through the level, but sometimes you'll also uncover better weapons and things like that for your ninja to throw. Really, really fun. And yeah, if you get caught, then of course that's you lose a life. And so it's all about kind of managing time. That is to say, defeating the enemies that are coming at you, and then using the time that you have left over to look behind everything, and then eventually exiting the level when you have enough scrolls. So yeah, Heist of the Ninja, really good. Crescent Moon is actually a side-scrolling shmup. It's a horizontal scrolling shmup. It's pretty good. It's not anything like truly special. I mean, it's got some enemy waves at it. It reminds me a little bit of a mix between Darius and Gradius in terms of how the enemies kind of pop up, but the upgrade system in it is straight up like Darius, in that enemies will drop like a certain powerful shot or something that you can pick up, and then that gives you like a double shot, but then you lose it if you die, and that kind of stuff. It's pretty simple. Like, there's not a whole lot to make it stand out, but it's nice and it looks nice. Like, it's got really nice big bosses in it, and some of the smaller enemies are like really detailed, so it actually looks kind of cool. And then you have Peng Peng, which is it's a little bit like Bubble Bobble, but it stars penguins. So you play in it as a penguin who has a move that can be upgraded throughout the levels if you get power-ups and stuff. But essentially, what Peng Peng is doing is, with projectiles, like freezing enemies, and then you can use your hammer to knock the ice block, and you can knock the ice block into other enemies for bonus points, depending on how you hit it and how the level's set up and everything. And then, of course, bonus points are good because it's an arcade. And then eventually you have to fight like big bosses, like every, I think, 10 levels. So yeah, that one's really cool too. Cool literally, because frozen ice stuff. And then finally we have Don't Mess with Rick. Don't Mess with Rick is a side-scrolling beat 'em up, very much in the vein of Double Dragon. They clearly got most of their cues from that, but it's got a little bit of Final Fight mixed in. Definitely has some references to like some other properties, but it has some levels that where you jump vertically through the level and deal with enemies rather than simply going left and right. But it's not a belt action game. It's literally just left and right. Like, you can't move up and down or anything like that. If you press down, Rick ducks. And if you up also has to do with like stuff. So it's got a little bit of a platforming element to it in that sense. But it's possibly the hardest game of the lot because beat 'em ups are very unfair. So this is the one where you'll probably spend the most quarters. But the games do seem to kind of be arranged in a left to right. Easiest to hardest, at least in my opinion. But, I'm not a person who's particularly challenged by a shmup, so the fact that it's the second hardest or third hardest, like, kind of makes sense. But I don't know if that's their intention, but that seems to be kind of how it is. But yeah, so you've got those games. The 4 games on their own are all fun enough to play. Like, none of them have any real, like, weakness to them. None of them, I would actually say, like, 2 of them are games that I would have bought separately for $5 each. I think Peng Peng and Ninja Heist are actually creative enough on their own to like have stood out. So the fact that you're getting all 4 of them in the same game, I'm not sure how I feel about the limited continue system. I think that it's actually kind of a good idea because each of the games do allow you to kind of pay your way through the game. So you are kind of like balancing out how difficult you're having a time of in the arcade with how much time you want to spend outside fighting regular enemies for spare change. Like, it's kind of a cool balance in that sense, but and I'm sure at some point you can unlock some kind of endless mode and just play the games like as much as you want, but I don't know that is in this game, so I can't really speak to it. But yeah,
isn't
really
there
interesting
also like a bonus demo in the game as well for the developer's upcoming project as well?
Was there? They didn't tell me there was.
I'm reading the Steam page. It says, last but not least, meet Lynn, the vivacious player of Holua's arcade room. So I guess that's her name. Lynn is also the hero of Fantasy Network, an upcoming high-resolution, cartoonish Metroidvania game, so try the demo level hidden just outside the arcade room and uncover the connections between the arcade games and the overarching plot. So there is a bonus demo in there to check out.
Okay, yeah, I did not check that out. So, but the outside does kind of act like a Metroidvania, so I totally get that. And if it's the same style of action that it is in the outside of the arcade type game, then I'm for it.
Well, the game clocks in at $5. What is your official verdict?
I mean, that's low enough to just give it a fuck it, why not? But actually, I think this is worth checking out, and I think you should check it out, even for $5. I would say actually do pay attention to this one, because it's pretty cool.
Cool. All right, one final game to talk about tonight is Gunbrella, developed by doinksoft, published by Devolver Digital, released September 13th on Switch and Steam for $14.99. Uncover the dark secrets of a gritty, tangled metropolis and battle diabolic villains with your trusty Gunbrella, a bulletproof brawly that doubles as a firearm. Pernell, what's Gunbrella?
Firearm that doubles as an umbrella.
Cool. $15. What's your verdict? No.
Buy it. Well, I mean, my verdict is buy it, but I should probably talk more about the game itself, huh?
Yeah.
So Gunbrella is a game that kind of came out of nowhere on the announcement window through doinksoft, the company that pretty much is known for selling some pretty odd little games, sometimes by way of like limited physical editions, blah, blah, blah. But this time they came up with something that I think is a bit of an interesting little gem in regards to at least the traversal of the game and the gameplay itself. You play as a man who wakes up, or as I say, on his way home with food, and unexpectedly his entire family gets murdered. He just witnesses his family getting murdered from a distance, or rather the chaos that ensues from that, and he rushes home. He gets there to see everyone dead, an umbrella lying against the wall, and nothing else. So he takes the umbrella, which happens to also be a gun, and he goes out on a rampage quest to figure out who murdered his family and exact revenge. And that is pretty much you. This story takes some really interesting twists and turns. I mean, the game looks like it's about a man with a nice mop hat, so you're like, it's a my Western-esque game or esque game. Just happens to have this weird umbrella weapon. But I'm going to tell you right now, it gets weird, and it gets weird fast. But that's not to say that the gameplay itself has to get weird, though it is weird in of itself, but it's fun weird. So what that is that your main method of traversal is actually the umbrella. You can open the umbrella in multiple directions, basically the typical 8. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, all 8 directions. So what you do there is, if you're, say, for example, on the ground, you push the controller up and hit the button. You open the umbrella and it propels you upwards. Where's the wind coming from? I have no idea. It doesn't matter. It's cool. It launches you upwards. You can use the umbrella to propel yourself forward. If you're in the air, you can propel yourself downwards quickly to get get where you need to be. If you're swimming, the umbrella can propel you through the water, and the umbrella can be used to deflect different attacks if you time it correctly. If you don't time it correctly, it will just block bullets. This is one amazing umbrella if you couldn't freaking tell. But it's not just an umbrella, because the title denotes it's also a pew-pew baby, and it does fire bullets. The default firing mechanism is a tri-shot, similar to like a shotgun. It has infinite bullets, though it has to reload each time you fire the shot. But you can also find other rounds that have more specialized firing methods, but unfortunately, those are limited use. So more often than not, your trusty sidearm is going to be a shotgun. But that's fine. It just means that you kind of have to decide every once in a while when they go for the heavy artillery. So as you progress through the game, you'll get access to gears. They're like sort of one of the collectibles of the game, which can be used later on to actually upgrade your gun in a variety of capabilities, such as power and reload speed. And those things can be used to make your trusty sidearm a little bit more of the sidearm for du jour, if need be. So you don't have to really feel like you're getting kind of shortchanged by having to use it. The game is not a Metroidvania. I just want to get that out of the way, because I thought it was. I'm sure a lot of other people think it is too. It is not a Metroidvania. It is a pretty much a platformer game. Maybe considered an action platformer, because the game can get action-packed at certain points, especially on hard mode, which I played on. But it is not a Metroidvania. Instead, think of it more like different areas connected by a train, but not in the form of finding new items to open up areas from old zones or whatever. You're moving forward. The game is all about moving forward and getting to the end. Though there are scenarios that do take place in the form of like little mini quests that might open up where you can get rewards if you fulfill them. And also, you will be tasked with resolving, I guess, requests or favors that will yield consequences as you get through the game. If you're an achievement hound, I'm sorry. Multiple playthroughs are required for this game because some of them are locked in. The achievements are behind these decisions. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't even have multiple save files because there's only one. So you will play this game more than once. But hopefully you don't mind because the game's action is actually pretty solid. I like the combat quite a bit. And it's not even mean in regards to restarts. I like the fact that the game allows you to choose a difficulty, play it, but in the event that you die a lot, in which I have, and you will die, you are kind of just thrown back to whatever last bench you slept on because nothing saves a man from bleeding to death like sitting on a bench. But that's what happens in this game. Right? It's like, oh, God,
something that is popularly known about men.
Bleeding to death. What do I do? Sit on this bench. Take that, U.S. healthcare system. But you pretty much just chill on a bench, and you'll respawn from said bench, and boop, boop, boop. You try again until you get it right. And you can also kind of like even exploit some of the benches because the fact that you can just kill a couple dudes, go back to a bench if it's nearby, save the game, and unlike Dark Souls, enemies don't respawn. So have fun with that. Not to say that there aren't healing items in the game, too, because there are a number of healing items, though they work in a way where you have to select them by using the left and right the left and right buttons on the cross pad to select between them, and then hold down the L button to use it. So you can't just use a Band-Aid in the heat of combat unless you can find a safe place to crouch while you wrap yourself up. But some healing items will give you sort of like extra hearts at the end of your health meter. Some items will outright heal you entirely. Like the bandage will heal all of your health, whereas like mushrooms might give you like 2 bonus health items on top of your normal health pool. So use wisely and buy when you don't. When you don't use wisely, just go shopping and buy some more. So I've rambled a lot about this game. It is a good game though. I think it was worth the hype that it got when everybody was talking it up. It's just silly, goofy fun. And the sprite work is fun. And I love that the adversaries are Cult 45. I laugh every time they reference them. I appreciate that they did that. And I'm sure someone out there is like, this is a BS. It's funny. Get over it. It's a good game. I like it very much. And I think it is another solid release from Devolver.
Well, $15, your official verdict?
Yoink this one post haste.
Yoink from Doink. All right, we're done with this episode. Thanks to you two for being here, hanging out. Thanks to Andy for coming on, doing his thing. Music this episode, because we talked about Bit.trip Rerunner. Let's play a song from Bit.trip Rerunner from our good friend Grant Stemage Henry. How's that sound?
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
Cool. Does anyone have any final words to end? Chris, we'll give you the final word since you weren't here for the chatter at the top of the show. Do you have any good final words to wrap this up?
Give it to the guy with no context. It was just like for some reason like you like the juice. That's I don't know.